Well, good morning, folks. Welcome back to the farm. Chickens want to say good morning. They just had their breakfast. They obviously still want dessert. The other day I was saying how we had not yet received the precursor to winter. We were not feeling the effects of winter. It was incredibly mild. Well, as you can see, yes, we've got our first killing frost here this morning. So I guess it's time to pull our socks up and get whatever out of the garden needs to be got out of the garden. Thankfully, the automatic water bucket and the no-fill water in behind the shop, they're not frozen yet this morning. There's just a light little crust on the top of this one. So I'm gonna have to also dig out our no-freeze chicken waters. It's just a conventional vacuum style water with heat trace and some insulation wrapped around it. And we actually just put it on a stand right there. We try and keep it outside the chicken house because water inside the chicken house creates excess humidity that you have to manage, and that's just more input, more wood shavings, more work. So there's not a ton of stuff left in the garden that really needs to panic to come out, but you can see all the carrot tops are wilted, so we'll probably get those out here within the next day or two. They'll still be good in the ground for a while, but we'll get them out. Some of these potatoes, the plants are dying back, so it'll be time anyways to get them out. And some of the stuff over here, it's shocking. These fingerling potatoes, what do we see here? I mean, there's still blossoms on some of these. It's absolutely wild to think that some of these blossomed right through July, August, and September. We haven't dug any of this brand of potato yet, so we'll harvest a few of those and see how they look here. So you'll see this row right here, we got half of it dug out. This was the Yukon Golds, that's these guys right here. So, I mean, no record breakers, but at the same time, I mean, there's no blemishes, no scab, nothing on that. It's a really nice, good looking, clean potato, but not huge, but that's fine too. Now, over the next few days as we work in the garden here to kind of clean some of this stuff out, you'll see there's quite a bit of clover in some spots here. And we talked earlier in the year about managing some of that. You know what, clover's a nitrogen fixer, and I'm not really overly concerned about it. What we're gonna do here, once we get this stuff out of the garden, is we're gonna tarp the rows in, and then we'll remulch the rows in between. We'll remulch the walkways essentially, but we're gonna lay a plastic tarp over each of the rows to protect the beds, as well as block out all the sunlight, stop photosynthesis. It'll generate heat underneath the bed, which will then encourage root growth for things like undesirable plants. Although clover, again, is a nitrogen fixer, it will take nutrients away. Clover in the walkway, however, like in this one, fantastic. Go ahead, knock your boots out. But we just don't want it taking over, you know, where you've got active plants growing. So we'll tarp everything in, block out all the light, and then in the spring, these beds, because they'll be tarped, any weed seeds that are in there will germinate, they'll pop up, they'll die off due to the absence of light, and then all we'll have to do, probably the week before May long weekend, if the weather is cooperating, we'll peel those tarps off and direct seed right into our beds without really much work. There'll be no tilling, no digging. At best, I'll dig out the broad fork and aerate the rows, and that's it. This patch of the garden here, this is where we had our pumpkins. We just harvested those a few days back, and we got 25 pumpkins. Well, I think we got up 20 out of here and 5 out of the other little pumpkin patch. But yeah, actually really impressed. This section, we didn't get any cattle manure and compost and peat moss worked into here. That all ended up in that end of the garden down there. So when we come to this section here, what do? Well, when we cleaned out the chicken house, I just dumped all the wood shavings, chicken manure that had composted in that chicken house over the winter, put it right here, and then worked it into the soil. And lots of it, because it was already kind of a low spot in the garden and some rock hard clay underneath, didn't blend very well. So I wasn't really sure how well anything would grow here. Well, because we dug through it and planted the pumpkins did exceptionally well. And as you can see in here, it really, you know, actually acted as its own mulch layer as well and kept a lot of the weeds out. I mean, there's still, like I said, you know, lots over there, the clover and stuff like that, that's very active in here. But we'll take care of that next year with the tarp. Now, just looking over here in the carrot patch, you can see This carrot right here, you can see a little hint of orange. It's, oh, I broke it off, unfortunately. The ground is a little bit frozen this morning. But the chickens have been in here and digging and working their way in, getting a little snack every once in a while. So I'd be interested to know, what is it that you all do to keep those pesky chickens from eating your supper? So this is what you see, and you come in, you know, the chickens have gnawed away at the top of this carrot like that. And so then of course I can't sell that carrot, which is unfortunate. So we're gonna get the odd one like that where it's chewed off at grade or whatever. Is that a total loss? Well, no, actually, surprisingly, it's probably pretty beneficial. In fact, if this whole row of carrots, if we didn't have a way to process them or store them, I would just leave them right there. I wouldn't even dig them out. I would let them rot down over the winter, and that will in turn soften the soil, encourage worm, bacterial growth, fungal growth, all of that stuff. Will actually enrich this bed quite a bit. So if you're gonna leave something in there, don't stress too much about it. Don't worry about it. If you're dealing with rock hard clay, kind of like we are, all this is organic material, right? That's the secret to working with clay soil is get organic material into that soil. So if something stays in the bed a little bit longer than it should, it's not the end of the world. I was just walking by our kitchen garden as well, and you can see we've pretty well stripped everything out of here. One of the beds is already even tarped in, and the only thing that's not only still here but is actively flourishing is this kale. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, to have frost on it and you'd never even know. Like, you'd absolutely never even know. No wilting, you know, the odd bead of water in there. I think we'll be eating this stuff for a while to come yet. So if you like kale, that's one of the most really hardy, especially for here in northern Alberta. Very hardy, and even once it's too cold to go in here, you can actively grow it in your greenhouse. So now, mulch layers for the big garden. How are we going to do this? As I said, we're going to put plastic in there on the beds, but where the walkways are, we want to mulch that stuff so it's nice and protected as well. And we've got this old bedding and stuff from, this is our lambing pen. That's the lambing shelter over there, and this was all the bedding that they had from last winter that we stacked up to get compost happening in here. And you can see it's semi broken down but not completely broken down, and that's perfect. It got really hot. We would have killed any weed seeds that were in any hay that was there. Most of this is straw though, and so it'll work fantastic in the garden. The thing about sheep manure is not only is it very nutrient rich, but it's also very well balanced. So you could pretty well have it come directly out of the sheep and go on the garden, and you wouldn't even really have to compost it at all, because as I said, it's balanced, so it's not going to burn your plants or anything like that. But you do compost it simply to kill any pathogens that might be present. Now, of course, before we tarp the beds in, we're also going to top dress those with some fully composted material that's way out in the field out there. We got to get the tractor and a bucket load of that and bring it in. So there's going to be some shovel work to get done here. Trust me. And so we don't have to worry too much about these cold days coming, because all the time spent with a shovel is gonna definitely keep us warm for a while. Anyways, on that note, it's time for me to head off to work for the day. So I'll let you go for now. I hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you tomorrow.